Welcome to the Underwater Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the world of underwater portrait photography, cinematography, and everything in between. With me, your host, Brett Stanley. Welcome back to the Underwater Podcast, and this week I'm putting my life in the hands of Marine and Dive Coordinator Bo Sanchez. Based in the Dominican Republic, Bo supervises the ultra-large outdoor water tank built by Pinewood Studios, and his team works on many of the productions that come to the island to shoot, including huge action films like XXX, The Mummy, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Bo talks me through how he trains talent for their underwater scenes, whether he prefers open water or tanks, and what it's like to ride motorbikes across the surface of the water with Vin Diesel. Okay, get ready to ditch your regulator, and let's dive in. Bo, welcome to the Underwater Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
Everything's good. Everything's fine. Everything's really busy at the moment. Right now, on a little vacation after I wrapped a film last week, and I have to prep 2 other films starting next Monday.
Oh, wow. So you're quite busy at the moment.
We are. It feels like everything's opening back up again, and studios need, to make their films, and we have been lucky enough to have been the destination of a few films that I feel that everything's evolving. I feel that we're getting bigger films, bigger projects, longer projects, and it's amazing for the local industry, for sure.
Yeah, that's great. And so has the Dominican Republic been a place where, has it been a hotspot for movie production previously?
It has, but when they approved the film law and the incentives, that's where you saw a steep incline of us getting pictures and getting a lot of projects. Let's say 2 per year, 2 feature films per year to 3. Now we're talking about for next year, 6 or 7. This includes Netflix and Amazon Prime and a bunch of studios that are looking into coming here to shoot.
That's incredible. Do you think that COVID-19 has had an effect on that? Like you guys are still open and accepting work?
Well, that certainly helps. But at the beginning of the year, we were going to shoot 7 to 8 projects this year, but everything stopped.
Yeah.
So everything just kind of got pushed. And now we're just getting the work that we were supposed to do earlier in the year. So, everything was lined up to have a great year. But sadly, not only for us, but everyone else, everything stopped and kind of got really crazy. But here we are shooting big budget movies in a time where I didn't think I was going to be working. For sure.
Yeah. I think a lot of us are kind of, I think we spent the first 6 months going, well, this is never going to pick up again. And then, I think sort of here in LA, especially since probably the start of October, it's just kind of started with a bang and it's all just come back on again.
Here, everything started around June.
Right.
So we started getting people here. We did a few pre-productions, local films shot. I shot 1 local film along with this American film that I just wrapped. We have been shooting locally, and now we've been getting international productions.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. And so why, in terms of the Dominican Republic, are they coming there for the scenery, for the landscape, or are there facilities there that they're coming down to use specifically?
I think it's both. We certainly are blessed to have amazing beaches and amazing landscapes. But we also, along with that, we have the facilities to provide a production. To come here, we have state-of-the-art studios. We have a massive water tank, which I run also. And it's just comfortable for productions we go out and shoot on location, and then we move everything back to the studios, and they can finish up their projects in a controlled environment, such as the water tank.
Yeah. And I have no concept of the geography down there. Is Dominican Republic a large place? Is there a lot of room between these locations, or is it all quite compact and easy for people to get to?
No, they're easy to get to, but I think it's deceiving on a map when you see the island and then you see, oh, it's just a move from here to here. Just just inches away. But
Right.
it could be from 5 hour trip or a 3 hour trip. But we have a good road infrastructure to get to and from locations, and you can get fairly remote looking locations just a drive away.
Oh,
You're
right.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you might, if you turn the camera the other way, you might see buildings and structure. But if you look that way, then it's...
That depends on the location. But what I want to say is that you can go up to like a place that looks really secluded, but it's a drive away. So it's an hour and a half away. It's not
Right.
10 hours. Or, for example, I've been to Colombia for work and it was a plane away between locations. So it's nothing like that. It's very manageable.
Yeah. And you mentioned the water tank as well, which I think is really impressive. I just saw some of that, which I think it's the Pinewood Studio tank. Talk to me about that, because that looks really impressive.
Well, the Pinewood water tank came about around 7 years ago. It was a joint venture between a group here in the Dominican Republic and Pinewood, UK, and a good friend who's called Dave Shaw, which is a marine and diving coordinator, designed the tank. And he designed a tank with 20 years of working in films experience. So
wow.
I got a water tank that's very flexible, that allows for surface work, underwater work. It's easy to put boats in. It's very malleable in what we can do with it and the scenes that we can shoot. So, for example, we one day might be shooting a surface scene with a 50-foot boat, and then the next day we're in an underwater world with a set underwater.
Right.
So it's very good that way.
What's the depth of it for those deep shots? Is it very deep?
We have it's a 16 feet depth max at the center. I want to say 75 meters, but for those in the States, I would have to actually go into the calculator, and it's 247 feet by 247 feet.
The width of it.
The width and the length of it. And the center part
so
is
quite big.
16 feet by 66 feet. So it's a square within a square.
Gotcha.
So even the deep part, we have 66 by 66 feet that we can, it's a good area. And 16 feet is a great depth because it doesn't get you into trouble on the diving aspect of it all, especially with untrained actors, which we go over a proper training to get to be able to put them on wrecks. But if you use a wide enough lens, anything going up to the surface will give you like that you're deeper than you really are. So it plays really well, and it helps really a lot.
That sounds amazing. And from the pictures that I saw, the water seems to be this beautiful Caribbean blue. And it's like what do they call it? Like a horizon pool where...
Yeah, it's a horizon water tank, correct. It's an infinity pool. It's a really big infinity pool.
And because some of the shots I saw, and it must be amazing to shoot in because you're shooting in this controlled tank, but then you've got the Caribbean Sea kind of out behind you.
The tank holds 2.7 million gallons of water, and it only fills up in 12 hours, which is really amazing. But the water, by law, we're not allowed to take water out of the ocean, nor I want to. Because if the water in the ocean gets murky, then the tank will be murky. So we take the water from wells. So it's brackish water, actually. So we treat the water like a normal pool, and then we degrade those chemicals in the water column, and then we put the water back. So we keep using and reusing the same water. We don't waste water while shooting.
Oh, that's incredible. Because I was wondering about that when you're on an island, that might have limited water supplies, where you're getting the water from. But so you're actually putting it back into the ground once you're done with it.
Correct. Here in the country, the way the ground is, we have a lot of caverns underwater, and there's a large water supply. It's the same as I'm sure you've seen like cave diving. I'm a Trimex and CCR cave diver as well. So I've seen those underwater systems firsthand. And
so you actually have those. You actually have underwater. Are they freshwater caves or are they saltwater?
That depends. Yeah. The deeper you go, then you go from fresh water to salt water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're both.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how did you get into this? How did you end up being a water safety coordinator or a marine coordinator?
So I've been a photographer for most of my adult life. I fell in love with photography from an early age and just started shooting everything like you do when you start off. And then I started diving. I started scuba diving, and I went all in. I left
Right.
nothing behind. I got up to instructor, technical dive. I'm a technical diver, instructor, rebreathers, cave diving, wreck diving, deep diving.
Right.
So it was just I started shooting underwater. I started shooting whales. I started shooting reefs and let's say the local, sea life.
Yeah.
And I then got tired of shooting just that because always loved portraits. So I
Yeah.
started working with people underwater, not necessarily other divers, just people that I would train as a dive instructor. And then
Yeah.
we would go out to the ocean or to the caves and shoot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I did that for a few magazines. I did weddings. I did all that you do when you live off photography, but more specialized in underwater. So I met someone, as you usually do. I met someone. He didn't know that I was doing that kind of work. And he introduced me to Dave Shaw, which is the guy that designed the water tank.
Oh, right.
Let's fast forward I met with him, talked to him, fast forward for a year, and I was in the UK training to do this job, basically, like fine tuning my skills with people underwater and how everything in the movie industry works on this side of things.
Right.
So I was very lucky in that sense that I got that opportunity, and here we are now talking to you. So it's been
Which means you've made it. Yeah.
it's a 7 year journey, probably
Right.
between or 8 years between all of that.
And so your introduction to Dave Shaw, that was basically your introduction to the film industry? Is that kind of like meeting him kind of opened the doors?
It was.
Yeah.
I had never been to a movie set before, but it felt like every single thing that I've done in my life, even if it was just being a mechanic for hobby, taking motorcycles apart and putting them back up, photography, the sensibility to light, everything has worked for me doing this job. And especially
Right.
spending all this time out in the ocean with boats, racing wave runners, and all of
Yeah.
that has come together, and it's helpful. Everything's helpful
Yeah.
for this job.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I guess you're a bit of a jack of all trades, I guess, when you're doing this kind of work.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And so with the timing, was the timing when Dave Shaw, was that when he had come out to sort of start designing the tank, or was it before that?
No, the tank was designed, and I got a call to take pictures of the inauguration of the tank underwater.
Okay.
They wanted to have that perspective also. I had
Gotcha.
already met him like a few days before that, and then we met and we talked, and then we kept talking. So yeah, the tank was already done when I went to the UK and when I started working in this industry.
But that's a beautiful set of circumstances to kind of get you to where you are now. That's really cool.
It is. I'm very fortunate. I'm very lucky. It's great. It's been great.
So talk me through what your kind of, I guess not day to day because it probably changes, but what your kind of overall kind of job at this, running a water tank. What does that actually mean?
Sure. I'm in charge of making sure basically that the water tank works properly for any production. This happens during the downtime. So we are very close to the sea.
Yeah.
So we're always fighting rust and fighting pumps that break. And so let's say that might be my day-to-day, almost like an engineer solving problems to keep the infrastructure working and being what we need it to be for
Right.
any production that might come. Of course, my company, which is Diving Services DR, which I run with my business partner, we are based at the water tank itself. So
Right.
no one knows the tank better than us and better
Yeah.
than our team. So that's a plus right there. Then when a movie comes along, it's kind of the same process of another department. I take the script and I read it, and I take the water scenes and I break them down. And then
Yeah.
it's just a bunch of meetings with a director or storyboards artist or everybody together saying, okay, the director might have a vision of how he wants to shoot it, but I will give him the reality of how it is that we can shoot it after
Right.
assessing the cast, what we need to do, how difficult it is, the level of training, the cast proficiency in the water. Do we need doubles? Do we need stunt doubles? Do we need picture doubles? So all of that comes into play, laying out what is and how it is that we're going to shoot it. First of all, is safety. That's non-negotiable. Non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So we do the safety aspect of it all, and which, depending on the vision, we might go and do the training and come back to our director and say, I think you need to compromise on this aspect, or so that kind of stuff.
Because maybe one of the actors isn't as good as they need to be for that, or perhaps it's too dangerous or something.
Exactly. So we can either go about it two ways. We either simplify the action, or the director will and DP will change the shots. So maybe we can have one cast and one double. That just happened on the film that I wrap now. We were shooting inside of a tunnel that the art department created. It's an underwater cave system. It was beautiful. Yeah. Can't wait to see it on the finished product.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But I decided that I needed more escape hatchets closer together. And then we assess the capabilities of the cast. And then we design the shots with that in mind, when to have them both the cast together, and then when we were going to mix the cast with the doubles. Not only taking into account the safety aspect or their capabilities, but when you're in the water, you get cold for a very long time. So it's a plan of resting people so they're happy and they can perform. At the end of the day, I want to give them the tools to get the diving aspect of it all away from their minds, and they can perform, because that's why we're all there. That's the main goal, the performance.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're basically giving them the tools and the techniques to be able to just concentrate on the acting side of it, and then leaving everything else kind of to you guys.
Correct.
That's great. And so how do you do that? What are you actually doing with the actors? So say you've got someone who has not done this before, has no underwater experience. What's the kind of process you go through to sort of get them up to speed?
Sure. It's getting them in the water first and seeing them the level of comfort. Then we go into a small, let's say when you get certified for open water, let's say that we give them like the first module, which is the pool, the confined water protocol. So we go through mask, we go through the reg, getting it out of the mouth, receiving it, both ways of receiving a reg. And then we go down and we dive in the water tank. If we have a set, we make them dive it on scuba tanks around the set, so they can start getting a grasp of where it is that they need to be and what they need to do. And I don't know if you've been there when people get certified, but it's this joy that people come out of the water with. Like I was just in another dimension, that I can float, and it's so different. And then I take that joy and we keep running with it. I try to maintain that level of energy and nuance of this thing that they're doing for the first time. Right. So then we take really, really baby steps along the way. Okay, we have a 50-foot tunnel, and it looks daunting, but I have hatchets every 6 feet. So the tunnel is only 6 feet long. So this is what we're doing. And then when we get them to go through the motions, then, okay, Now it's time to take your mask off and do it without a mask so you can remember how it looks without a mask. So it's just baby steps all throughout. And on shooting day, I like to do something easy. Then we go into shooting something really hard.
Yeah.
And then we go back down to easy. Especially when I have shoot days on consecutive days. I don't want to do something really difficult that they feel that they can't achieve the next day. So I also plan that with the first AD. We go through the plan of how it is that we want to shoot the scene. Sometimes aesthetics, like in commercials, dictate that because I like to shoot the close-up first to avoid the red eyes. And then we go into the wide. So it will depend on the job.
That's really cool, though, because, I mean, you're literally thinking about the effects of the water on the talent and probably on the crew as well.
Correct.
So that you're making the most of it in terms of the shooting order.
Correct. Our safety doesn't stop with the cast. It's everybody involved in the shoot. That's what I oversee, especially out in the ocean, on the marine coordinating aspect of it all. How many boats, how many rescue boats, how many safety boats, how many tender boats. So I create a set out in the ocean, and this set needs to have a backup. So I need to think on the worst case scenario for every single ship that I'm using and how I can solve an issue, if not thinking about if a boat sinks, which it might, but that's not the immediate concern. It's what happens if a boat breaks down. Will this stop the shooting? Will this hinder the shooting? So it's that dynamic I have to think about.
So in terms of those two kind of job titles, you've got your diving coordinator and you got your marine coordinator. Are they two separate jobs when you're working on films like this, or are you basically rolling them into one? So you're out there worrying about the boats and you're worrying about the divers.
Worrying about everything. It's the whole thing, especially when we're out in the ocean and we're shooting underwater.
Right.
So then it really becomes the two of them together. I of course have my marine supervisor and diving supervisor, which is my business partner, who's also an underwater camera operator. So we divide a little bit the responsibilities if that would be the case. So I would concentrate more on the people that I have underwater. He will manage the boats and the plan that I made, and he'll execute it. So I have that in my team where I will always focus on the people in the water. That will always be my focus.
So you've set that as your kind of priority, and you've got other staff and other crew to look after the other aspects.
Absolutely, correct.
And so when you're on a production or on a new film, is it very often that you're getting situations that you haven't sort of covered before? Like, I assume you kind of have a good set of, from experience, you kind of know, if we're doing this, then we're going to need all this. Do you very often get the kind of curveball, whoa, I've never done this before?
Yes, I have, of course, especially when I've been the marine coordinator on a film where we had motorbikes running in the water. I don't think anybody could be prepared for that.
Was that Triple X or something?
Yeah, that was for Triple X.
I remember the trailer,
And I mean, we killed the amount of motorcycles we killed. It's obscene. But it was really fun. It was great. But I mean, like you work underwater, and every time somebody might come to you and tell you, I want to do this. And you've, like, as you may know, you will say, like, I've done this many, many times. But like the way that people behave in the water just makes it a completely different approach that you need to take to solve a situation or to bring something to life. Right. So that one is the one that happens a lot. Every director, they have their own methods. And I'm lucky enough that when I get directors, they haven't shot a lot underwater, for example. Mm-hmm. So they will take my advice. Right. And it's truly cooperation because they know I have their vision at heart. And they know I'm trying to achieve that vision as close as, for example, we just wrapped a film with M. Night Shyamalan, and it's very known that he does a lot of storyboards and that he shoots the boards. I mean, he might get creative in a moment, but he'll shoot the boards first. And
So
then
he's
we
very,
can play
very
with
set on
whatever
what he
else we need.
wants.
Very set. He does his homework.
Yeah.
So I need to work in achieving his vision. And then, like, for example, okay, this is supposed to happen deeper in the tunnel, this shot that we're looking at in the boards. And I would go to him. I would feel more comfortable if we move them up a little bit, so the escape hatchet would be right on top of them, because we need them to play the scene for 45 seconds underwater without breathing. And I don't want them to swim a little bit more to go out, or depending on the angle, the safety divers can't be very close to them. So
Right.
what is that we're going to do the compromise with? The framing, the where we place them. So that's the whole idea of the job.
Yeah, so you're trying to work out these compromises to keep everything safe and to keep it within your kind of comfort levels.
Yeah.
But also still get the concept.
And you have to be careful, because my comfort levels can be pretty insane, because I've done pretty insane things in the water. You have to always think through the capabilities of your cast. And and sometimes you have to remind yourself, yeah, I've jumped out of cliffs 50 feet into the water for a stunt or something. I've done that many, many times. Or tied in a sheet, like a body, and kicked over, and I couldn't pop up to the surface. So a diver would have to scoop me up and then take me away without me seeing anything. But not the cast, and the cast is not anyone else. We need to work with that and their limitations.
Well, that's an interesting point, actually, because as a safety diver who's also done the stunt sort of stuff, and if you're, as you say, your comfort level is way out there, you have to kind of reset every time you work with new cast to their level, right? Like you have to kind of maybe push them a little bit, but know when to stop.
Yeah, but the push will come probably when we're training. And I would, let's say I need them to perform at a 6, and I'll complicate things during training to an 8, so they can feel comfortable at a 6.
Gotcha.
Because after an hour working, like shooting underwater, their abilities will go down to a 4, because
they're
tired,
exhausted.
they're exhausted, they're cold, might be hungry. So I need to take all that into account. I'm not good into pushing while we're shooting, especially the cast.
But that's a great way to do it. So you're stressing them in the training, and then it feels like, so when they get to the actual production, it feels not as stressful as it did when they trained for it. So they kind of relax a bit more.
So, and that comes back to giving them the tools so they can perform. That's the whole thing. Yeah.
And so how did you learn all of this? Is it just experience of years of doing this yourself, or did you actually have someone show you how to train talent underwater?
The training aspect of it all, I got it from being a scuba instructor. So when I started diving, and when I fell in love with scuba diving, started doing cave diving and all of that, I didn't have the money to pay for all of that education. So what I did was that I got into an agreement with a friend who used to own, who actually still owns a diving school. So basically I became an instructor at that school to help him out. So that would pay for mind you, I was still working at a newspaper, like on a normal job, on the website on a normal newspaper, local newspaper. But on the weekends and in the afternoons, I would go to the shop and either fill up tanks, work on wrecks, and teach. And that would pay for all of my education. So I started working with a lot of people, and I've always enjoyed, more than a technical course, I always enjoy teaching 2 courses, the open water and the rescue diver course. To me, those were and still are my favorites. I don't teach a lot, sadly, just to get my license renewed as an instructor, because I need it for this job. And we can get into that a little bit later. But that's how I got my patience, and how I would go with every single person. And I don't see a movie star. I see somebody that that comes and wants to learn diving.
Yeah.
So we go through the motions and I make it fun. And you need to understand that this is a foreign environment for this person and that you need to make this transition, the best you can and the most enjoyable that you can.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very interesting point too. And having done safety diving myself, I feel like there's two types of safety divers on a film set. There's the ones that are just basically there just in case. And there's ones like you who are interacting with the cast, kind of training them and being their guide through the whole thing. And it's very different temperaments. So as a standard safety diver, you can just sort of do your own thing. But for you, you've got to really have patience and kind of work to them. Like you have to have a really good sort of bedside manner.
Yeah. So the way I set this up it's that we probably on the first day, I would get in the water a little bit with them and give them, let's say, the opening speech, right? And here in the DR, we don't have a governing body that oversees diving operations and stuff. So like the studio, Pinewood is an UK-based company. So we take the health and safety protocols from them. So to work with a cast member, you need to be a dive instructor.
Right.
To be in the water with a board as a safety swimmer, you need to be a rescue diver. So I have it set up like that. So in my team, I have instructors, I have dive masters, and I have rescue divers. So that's the layout of my team. So then when we start training them on only the scuba aspect of it all, I will assign a safety diver for a cast member, let's say, and another safety diver for that cast member. That will be their safety diver all throughout the shoot.
Gotcha.
No switching, no nothing. So they can develop, a conversation, a trust. So
like a good relationship.
A good relationship with the cast, with their divers. And then I would go in the water again and we would start rehearsing what it is that we need to do on scuba. And then let's say I get out of the water and through the witness camera in the water tank, I can see where they're at. And with my microphone and underwater speaker, then I start talking to them and giving them the commands that they need to execute to start performing. Right. So sometimes I have cast member that like to start the action wearing a mask because they want to see where they need to go. So then when we start shooting, it's mask off and I see them take their mask off. Okay, I can see that you're good. Okay, now let's breathe a little bit more and regulator out and waiting on the bubbles and action. That's kind of the way we start the action. And on that side of my job, I share a lot of responsibilities with the first AD because sometimes I'm the one that calls action and I'm the one that starts because they don't necessarily know what's going on.
Yeah, and you've got the microphone for the underwater speaker, so you're basically conveying all those instructions to everyone under the water.
Correct. Yeah.
That's great. And then so what you're saying is you've got a camera that's under there which is just for you so you can see what's happening.
I can see where everybody is. So if I don't like the position of someone or I need something moved, I will send that message down below and I'll have a diver there, which his only job is to be there if I need something moved, for example.
Right. And so what's the biggest production you've been on in terms of the amount of cast and people in the water? Have you been on some quite extravagant shows?
I've been on extravagant TV commercials, I'll tell you that. Right. Those guys, they get wild in their ideas. And I've had let's say 40 people in the water at the same time, swimming as they were a school of fish.
So 40 cast.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, XXX was daunting in the sense of the danger that involved everything. But we had great guys and a great stunt coordinator. I've always say that one of the hardest films that I had to do underwater was for a good friend here locally. And we shot a few scenes underwater. And it was really hard because the three actors needed to be completely submerged and act underwater. They had to tell us.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And the camera movement and the light movement, we even had live movements, and it was really complicated. And this job that I just did now, it was tough because the actors thought it was really, really tough. So we had to, once they started swimming the set, the cave systems that the guys built, everything got a lot easier. But yeah, it was really hard. This one was really hard.
Just because of the level of the actors, because they thought it was going to be hard. Is that why it was hard?
It was hard because they thought they couldn't do it.
Right.
So it puts us in a position that we need to start making decisions of how are we going to play this now? What happens if we can't achieve? But I got the time for the training that I asked for, which doesn't really happen in every single movie.
Right.
But here on this movie, I got the time that I needed to train them, and we trained them properly.
Right.
So it's just the agonizing wait before we shoot something. And like she gets caught in a coral. Is this coral going to break as it is supposed to do? And the shot is a fairly wide shot. So where can I put the divers? So I hit the divers on top of the tunnel. So it's just getting around those hurdles that it's difficult.
Yeah, trying to get the logistics right.
Yeah, I did a movie with 5 kids on a boat. Let me tell you, that was really
How
hard.
was that?
Chaos, good chaos, because the kids were just enjoying being out in the ocean and playing around, and they were great kids. It's a movie that was supposed to come out at the beginning of next year, but yeah, I mean, that kind of difficulties we've had.
Yeah. And what is it like working with kids? Because I feel like kids to a certain age have no fear. They just kind of run headfirst into stuff. How's that when you're trying to train someone to do something?
No, we have to hold them back. Yeah. They want to go off to the races. We have limitations, of course, in the age that we can use a scuba tank on kids and the depth that a kid can go, and it's the same as in real life. But yeah, here's the crazy story. We're shooting for a local film, and of course, we're never involved in the casting because it's a bigger scope thing. So we get a call from the producers, and we're like, we want to shoot this film, and we want to shoot it out in the ocean. Doesn't have to be really deep, but it's perfect. And we're like, okay, what's the cast like? And they go, the director doesn't like working with actors, so he casted a local Colombian fisherman who actually, what he does is goes down and with a harpoon and fish for fish. And I'm like, this is going to be the easiest job ever. We're basically going to do a documentary.
Right.
So they come to the Dominican Republic. We set everything up. We start talking to the fisherman. And he goes like, I'm not a fisherman. And I'm like, wait, what? And he goes, I raise goats in Colombia. And then he goes, and I need to tell you something. My brother and my niece drowned in the ocean.
Oh, my God.
So then it becomes a situation where we need to understand this other human being. He was willing to do it. But we also needed to work on breaking that fear.
It's like a psychological level.
Of course. So we trained a lot. We went really, really slow. So the first time that his safety diver went down with him, and I saw them from the boat, like looking through and I saw them immediately. The guy was enjoying himself, looking at the corals, looking at the fish. Yeah. When he came up, he started crying with joy. And all of a sudden, everybody in the boat was crying.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful moment of the things that we need to deal with constantly.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Because, I mean, he has this apprehension, and then you kind of, as you say, break through it. And then he sees the amazing wonderment of swimming underwater. That's beautiful.
Yeah, he was so happy. But the reality of it all is every cast member that you encounter will tell you that he knows how to swim and that he knows to ride a horse.
Because they want to please you. They want to be able to do it.
Yeah, drinking in a pool is not swimming.
Yeah.
And I go throughout almost every single time.
Right. Have you had people that were just not really getting it, like had so much trouble picking it up that you had to just really, really change the concept?
Yeah, but not because of them, because of physiological issues. Like some people just can't equalize. Some people just can't. So we've had to change everything because of that. Like you even send them to the doctors and they come back and say, no, he has an obstruction in his inner ear and he's not going to be able to do it. And you're not gonna, hurt somebody shooting a film. Like that's that. So then we need to go back to the drawing board and see how we can play this. It's usually head breaking water, close up under the surface, and then we go behind with a double or something, or a little bit further away, or whatever it is. But yeah, we've had people that can't really equalize, or honestly, people that just don't like being underwater, whether it's claustrophobic. Some people find it claustrophobic. I find it, to me, it's the complete opposite. But sometimes you can fight that, and you just have to go to production and say, we need to find a way to solve this.
Yeah. And generally, is it by using a double? Usually
it is, because if the director still wants to get the underwater shots, we either go with a double, because especially since it's very rare that I get full films that are shot in the water. Right. So they have already shot somewhere else. So we have that actor there in that film. So they're not going to change an actor because you can't equalize. So
you have to make it work somehow.
You have to make it work.
And so for you, I mean, you do stuff in the tank, you do stuff in the open water. Do you have a preference? Is there a place that you prefer to be working?
Honestly, I like to work in the tank. 100%. It's the safety of it all, how we can control things. But we shot a complete movie in the water tank. That was the director's vision. But the reality of it is that we need to shoot stuff in the ocean. So they have material to cut from the ocean to the water tank. So that on the films that were playing, like we're out on the ocean. But I rather work in the water tank, and I rather work underwater. That's the truth.
Yeah. No, that's
great. To me,
great.
it's more challenging, more demanding. Now I'm prepping a film where we're going to crash a bunch of boats and a helicopter shooting at boats. So that's fun. That's really, really fun.
And is that going to be in the tank?
We are playing, let's say, 95% out in the ocean. And then for dialogue and stuff, we're coming back to the water tank to get that coverage. It's just easier and more control for, even if they have crane shots and they want to do more complex camera moves, it's easier to achieve in the water tank for sure. But we need to play this one, a lot of it, almost every single bit of it, out in the ocean.
So in terms of the effects, like we're talking about Triple X and, motorbikes riding on the water and all that sort of stuff, how involved are you in the effects of stuff? Because you have things like water, drop tanks and, sprayers and all that sort of stuff. Is that your department, or is someone else looking after all of that stuff?
We have, let's say, the normal departments, stunts and special effects, and let's say even VFX. And I work with every single one of them, and even work with wardrobe department, making sure that a certain type of wardrobe is safe, or if we're going underwater where we can hide a few weights, my department works with every single department when we are out in the ocean. So let's say what it is that you need for the stunt guys to, if you are managing, let's say, your own safety, the safety of the stuntmen that are playing. Okay, we need a certain amount of skis or jet skis, or I provide that for them. Right. And of course, I manage the safety of the crew and stuff, but I work directly with them.
Yeah. And so you're providing all the marine craft in terms of boats and jet skis and all that stuff.
Correct. In the next film, without divulging anything because of my NDA, but I need to find a particular boat that is in the range of the $800,000 boat up to a skiff, which is probably $200.
Okay.
So, and between that, I have to get like 10 boats.
Right. And how many of those are going to survive the movie?
Not a lot, I can tell you.
Right. That sounds like a lot of fun, though.
It is fun. That's my kind of movie.
Right. More action. More blowing up things up.
Yeah, more action driven, definitely, and more adrenaline and going fast and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's the crazy thing is that in the ocean, going fast will give you adrenaline. In the water tank underwater, going slow is what gives you the adrenaline.
Oh,
so
right.
everything is more steady and more. So it's cool like that. I enjoy both worlds.
And I kind of think, now you're talking about underwater tunnels and caves and that sort of stuff. Like I kind of feel like when you're shooting in a tank with a set, it is kind of more like cave diving, where everything's very measured and everything's very slow and you kind of take it all in.
Correct. It is. It is. We handle it like if it's basically cave diving because it's an overhead environment. They're going to swim through portions of it where they don't have a direct, ascent to the surface.
Yeah.
So we need to, you plan for that and you block the tunnel with a human being, with our safety diver. And so you are making sure that nobody makes a mistake of passing through where they're supposed to go out or anything like that.
And you're talking about, so this set has escape hatches, and without sort of telling me too much, because you're still under wraps on this one. When you say there's an escape hatch, is it actually a hatch, or is it just a kind of a well-hidden hole?
Yeah, remember that English is not my first language. So it's holes that will permit light, a little bit of light coming through. So we had like proper openings and they were framed out. And we had holes with basically divers holding up to the set piece on the outside. And they're like hatches, like doors.
Oh, okay. So they can pull it open if they need to.
Yeah. So we had both. I wanted to have both.
Yeah. How many crew, like how many divers have you got on that sort of thing?
On this one, I had 12.
Okay.
I had a total of 12 people underwater. I had people for when the cast came up to the surface because we needed to do a few shots where they would just come from the floor of the tank all the way up to the surface. So we have safety swimmers on board so the cast can hold on to their boards and rest for a little bit and for waiting for reset. We have utility divers that will help. In this case, Ian Seabrook, who has been in the podcast, he was just here. He just left. He shot this film with us, and like a diver helping out with the cables because in this case it would get tangled a lot because of the corals that we had, of the fake corals that we had in our set. A guy would help me out with my witness camera and my audio system because it was really difficult to hear inside of the tunnel. So the speakers needed to be moved constantly as well.
Do you have a diver who's just basically moving them around closer to the talent?
Correct. So yeah, it's 10 to 12 people in the water doing different, and not counting on the grips and electrics that were also needed to dive to adjust their lights and their structures.
That's a big crew. That's a lot of people in the water.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people that you're kind of responsible for.
I know. Yeah, yeah, but that's why I knew almost every one of them, and I knew they're all great divers. And also, I know that they're looking out for each other. I know that my guys are, because my guys, the utility divers, their job is also to keep an eye on the non-diving crew and their workmates. So safety's, everybody needs to be checked.
Yeah, you got to have eyes on everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Bo, that's incredible. This is such an awesome, different perspective on shooting a film. I think, you've got a really good kind of, perspective on how all this goes together. Yeah, it's really cool.
It really is. Imagine that, like on my third day on a movie set, I was working with Pete Romano. So it's been a crazy ride.
That's a good introduction. I mean, Pete's an awesome guy and he's amazing. So for your third day, that's pretty good.
He's great.
Bo, thanks so much. It's been really cool to chat with you, and look forward to seeing these films that are going to come out shortly.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you for having me. I've been a fan of the podcast since day one, and this is a huge honor for me.
Oh, man, it's an honor to have you on here. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And as always, if you like the podcast, please subscribe, review, and share. If you'd like to support the production of these episodes, you can purchase our very cool merchandise at theunderwaterpodcast.com. We've got branded coffee mugs, stickers, beer cozies, and posters featuring our amazing illustration and logo by Joe Hodino. If you'd like to connect with us or learn more about our guests, you can reach us at theunderwaterpodcast.com or on Instagram. We also have a Facebook group where you can discuss the episodes and even get your questions answered by the guests. There's a link to it in the show notes. You can learn more about my underwater photography workshops and mentoring at brettstanley.com or Brett S Photo on Instagram. The Underwater Podcast is presented and produced by me, Brett Stanley, and our music is Neo by Oh Boy. Keep creating, everyone. I'll see you in the water.